Hello, fellow YouTube fans. I'm Andy Ruffett,
I'm Gemma Cruz.
and so this is the second segment of recording my short story, A Cock and Bull Story. And as you can see, the room has changed. I'm not in my room anymore. We've actually stolen a classroom at York University, and unless we get kicked out very soon, we are going to keep reading until they kick us out, or until we're done. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next part of A Cock and Bull Story. Talk to your son, my mother said, pointing to me. My father stared at me. What did you do? I'd rather not talk about it, I said. That house cost me an arm and a leg, cried my father, pointing to two stumps where one arm and leg should be. I had always wondered how he moved, or did anything with one arm and one leg. I'm sorry, Dad. My father muttered something about how stupid I was under his breath. The next house we bought could cost me my other arm and leg, and then how will I get around? I'll make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah, right. Dad, you just need to have faith in me. You burned down the house! How am I supposed to have faith in you? He was right. I couldn't really argue with that statement. Well, get in the car. We're going shopping. For a new house. How did you get here, by the way? I asked as Uncle Bob and I got into the back seat while my mother and father sat in the front. I hopped. A long way to hop to. I'm a fast hopper. As we were driving, I spotted a lot of houses that looked livable. I tried to get my parents' attention many times on which house we should drive to.
Turn right, now turn left. Just keep going straight, it's almost there. No, you're driving to the wrong one. Can't you see the house? Stop backseat driving, cried my mother, who was in the driver's seat. I had been driving the car every direction I wanted it to go from the back seat. I actually had a steering wheel in the back seat, but it was interfering with the controls of the driver's steering wheel. I can't drive if you drive as well. I let go of the steering wheel. Sorry. We arrived at the house my parents wanted to visit just in time for the open house. The woman smiled at us charmingly and showed us around. She was the previous owner, but I wasn't really paying attention as she talked about every room and how great the house was. She showed us the kitchen last. Before she finished her speech on how marvelous her kitchen was, someone accidentally knocked over a glass vase and ran away quickly. Soon the woman's husband stormed in and saw the broken vase. Suddenly the woman saw a juicy red apple. It was hanging on a branch on her apple tree in her backyard, so she quickly climbed the tree to pick it. Her husband soon followed her and cried, "My wife! How dare you break my beautiful vase?" He looked at her up in the tree as she ate her apple calmly and began barking. "My dear husband," she said over the loud barks, "you're barking up the wrong tree. The man you're looking for is the tree beside me. The man you're looking for is in the tree beside me." Her husband growled and grabbed the fully grown man who was hiding in the tree beside hers. He stared at him and cried, "Clean up that mess you made." The skinny man obeyed and ran back into the house. "I'm sorry, my little pumpkin," the husband said to his wife as he brought his wife down from the tree.
The pumpkin smiled. I must have never known we were listening to a pumpkin, as the man cradled the vegetable in his arms. My family followed the husband back into the kitchen. "Very sorry about that," said the pumpkin. The husband placed the pumpkin on the counter, so we could all see her, and was about to leave until he noticed a skinny man trying to clean up the mess he made. He swept up the mess into the dustpan and threw it into the garbage. "I'm very sorry about that," said the man. "I don't know what I was thinking. I have such clumsy feet." Then he noticed a really dirty window in front of him, and decided to clean it for the husband. He grabbed a sponge and began scrubbing. He scrubbed and scrubbed, but the window still looked as grimy as before. He kept adding more soap and wetting the sponge countless times, but the window stayed dirty. The husband sighed. "You're beating a dead horse," he notified, as he watched the man repeatedly slam the baseball bat he was holding into the deceased horse that lay at his feet. The smell was awful, and I couldn't believe I hadn't seen the poor animal there before. We all plugged our noses as the husband said, "I've tried to clean that window for many days now, and no matter what method I try, it always looks that disgusting." The skinny man nodded. That's when my family left for the door, never planning to come back. "A dead horse and a window that can't be cleaned? I don't think anyone will buy that place," said my father as we got into the car. "We're going home." "Why?" I asked. "We've only seen one house."
"There's a surprise birthday party for your mother at the house." Oops, I let the cat out of the bag. We heard a hiss and an orange cat jumped out of a grocery bag in the back. "Get that damn cat out of this car," cried Uncle Bob, as it began trying to scratch everyone's faces in total shock. It nicked my ear with its claw, and that's when I opened the door. A quick meow was heard as it left our car. My mother, more appalled and irritated than the rest of us, smiled at my father. "You son of a gun," she said, "throwing me a party without my knowing." My dad grinned as my mother kept driving. "I never knew I was a son of a gun," he said, opening the glove compartment and pulling out a black shiny pistol. "This is my father, Charles. I thought so after you never told me where your father was. Your mother never told me either." We arrived at the house, and my mother was pleased as ever as all her friends greeted her inside Uncle Bob's house. Uncle Bob just smiled. "Happy birthday, Meredith," we all chorused. My mother smiled. "Thank you for planning this, Fred and Bob," she said. My uncle and father shrugged their shoulders. "It was nothing," they chorused together. Everyone was happy and laughing until someone smashed a lamp in the front hall. That's when Uncle Bob lost his head. He yelled so much that his head fell off his shoulders and rolled towards my mother's friend, who had destroyed the beautiful lighting device. Obviously, Uncle Bob really loved that lamp. We put his head back onto his shoulders, and then he whistled.
Soon 2 horses came charging through the door, focused on my mother's friend. "Hold your horses!" cried my mother, as Uncle Bob quickly grabbed onto the reins of the rampaging animals. "This here is your aunt. Don't you remember? She raised you when your parents died when you were 2. You don't want to bite the hand that feeds you." The horses had stopped charging, and now Uncle Bob was just about to bite his aunt's hand until he remembered the kind elderly woman and stopped. He hugged her and said, instead, "I'm sorry for being so irrational," he apologized. "Quite all right," said his aunt. "I have quite a lot of life left in me. I'll pay for the damage of the lamp. Over my dead body." Suddenly, Uncle Bob fell to the floor unconscious. My aunt checked his pulse. "He's definitely deceased," she said. She walked over to Uncle Bob and grabbed her wallet from her purse. "Might not have cost this much, but I'll give this much anyway." She stuffed a $100 bill into the dead man's jeans pocket. Uncle B awoke instantly. He looked into his pocket and smiled. "You're too kind," he said, noticing the shiny brown bill in his pocket. He decided he didn't want to stress his aunt, so he kept the money. "You're all invited to my place for drinks after the party," said Uncle B's aunt to everyone in the house. "That would be lovely," said one of my mother's friends. "But I'll take a rain check on that. My son's getting married today." She quickly ran outside to check if it was raining. And that concludes section 2 of the Cock and Bull story. Tune in next week, and I'll have another guest reading with me.
Bye.
Bye for now.